I'm Heather Smith and welcome to Q&A Tuesday here at barrelracingtips.com. Today's question comes from Lena. Lena writes, "My mare tends to get strung out in her turns at competition speed. At home we can do rollbacks along the fence and she's really on her hind end and really using her motor coming out, but on the pattern she just doesn't seem to keep her hind knee under her through the turns. What are some other exercises and drills that will help her gain this in her competition runs?" What a great question. You're not alone with this problem, and I'm really excited to help give you some suggestions that I think will create the positive result you're looking for. Now, the first step would be to schedule an appointment with an equine performance vet to rule out a physical problem. Once that's thoroughly been ruled out, it's possible that your horse has used his body incorrectly in a run enough times now that it's become a habit for him. He's developed muscle memory and even neural pathways in his brain so that his default reaction is to just get around the barrels in this way, and it may even feel like there's not much you can do about it. Keep in mind that when operating at speed, there's just not much time to consciously think things through for the horses or for us, which is why it's so important to build a foundation of correct movement patterns from the beginning. Now, one of the best ways to rewire the muscle memory is to first stop allowing the incorrect movement to occur. This means not even attempting to make a run until you're confident you've created new, more positive habits. To do this, we must create new movement patterns over the course of time using quality repetition. To get started, I have 3 exercises you're going to love. You mentioned that your horse really uses himself well when he does rollbacks. What you want to do then is close the gap between those awesome rollbacks and how he uses his body around the barrel by placing a barrel in the close vicinity of a wall where you plan to practice rollbacks. Position the barrel 30 feet from the wall, then approach the wall at a 45-degree angle with the intention to perform a rollback toward it, then back to the barrel where you will lope around it like you would a turn. Be sure you really use your posture and body to sit deep, yet hustle your horse around the turn while utilizing his hindquarters just as he does in the rollback. If the turn isn't as good as you feel it should be, again perform another rollback or 2 before loping again around that barrel. You should start to feel your horse moving with more quality around the barrel, with more weight balance on his hind end like he does in the rollback. Once that's going well, you might actually set up 2 or 3 barrels in a row and perform an occasional rollback to let your horse know that the posture he uses on the fence is similar to what you're looking for around the barrels. By doing so, you're essentially closing the gap between the two and creating a direct tendency and association to let your horse know that this way of moving is not just necessary in a rollback, but it applies around the barrel as well. Now you can also perform a 360 on the back side of the barrel to encourage your horse to really shift his weight back and use his inside pivot foot very specifically in the area of the turn where you need it most. Do note that it's very important that your horse is pivoting around on the inside hind leg and not swapping ends or turning on his front end. Precision is very important here. If your horse happens to feel stiff or tends to drop down and to the inside, you can again suggest that he do the opposite, which would be to elevate the front end and travel with more of a soft arc in their body. Encourage this by stopping to get their weight transferred to the hindquarters, then roll out and away from the turn to encourage more balanced movement both laterally and vertically. Do this the instant you feel your horse leaning, but be smooth and fluid about it. If your horse receives an abrupt punishment, he's likely to become even more tense. In time, your horse should realize that to avoid extra work, it would be just a good idea to get in balance and take responsibility for moving correctly. As you're performing these exercises, even though we're using repetition to teach or reteach that quality is better than quantity. If your horse gets too fatigued or things get sloppy, you won't really be making much progress. When your horse starts making the connection and performs a nice turn or makes improvement, absolutely be sure to stop and give him a good rest reward. Only when you can lope around a series of barrels along the fence would you go back and attempt to put it all together on the actual pattern. Then you would only add speed to the pattern once your horse is moving with quality at a slower pace. As you do, don't hesitate to leave the barrel pattern and perform a rollback or 2 and then return to remind your horse that what applies on the fence applies on the pattern as well. The longer your horse has had a habit of using himself incorrectly, the longer it's likely to take to completely rewire this tendency. Be patient, and you may even need to plan on spending at least a month or more creating the new muscle memory. Now, how quick your horse learns will also depend on your ability to feel and correct the movement you don't want and then reward the movement you do want. Either way though, quality takes time. It won't do you any good to rush this process. If you test things out at high speed too soon, it's likely he'll just revert to the same old habits. So only go forward when you're totally confident things are going well at the speed you're at. I hope you've enjoyed my A to this cue. When we understand how the brain and the body develop habits, it makes total sense that it can be challenging to create completely new ways of moving, especially at speed once those movement patterns have already been well established. But it can be done. It all goes back to knowing what quality movement is, how to develop it, prevent bad habits from occurring, and having the patience to create new ones. So tell me, have you ever had a horse that seemed to revert back to the same old habits at speed no matter what you did in slow or dry work? Share in the comments below what your challenges have been in this area and what you've done to help resolve this issue. Don't forget, all the action happens in the comments over at barrelracingtips.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for free weekly tips, and if you've enjoyed this video, please share it with your barrel racing buddies. Until next time, go fast!